Kevin, and I'd like to welcome our speaker for tonight on step one. It's Jessica.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Like he said, I'm Jessica, so I just wanted to introduce myself real quick. I'm an alcoholic, former alcoholic. I'll talk a lot about that and what I have prepared for tonight. This community has meant a lot to me, and I really started coming back because of my husband, Brad. And so I mentioned him a few times in here as well. And so full-time, I work at Spalding University. I'm their math lab coordinator, so I do their math tutoring. I'm also a math teacher, so that's kind of been my experience. I worked in public high school for 7 years, but I'm really living my passion every day, helping students with math, and I really enjoy it. So let's get started. Before I go into step one, you may be asking yourself, why do I need to go through these steps? Why do I need to do this? In these weekly meetings, we talk about each of the 12 steps. It takes us 16 weeks to go through all of them, and every 4 weeks, we have a testimony, a guest speaker, or a celebration at the end, which we just had last week. We're doing step one today. Every Wednesday, we break off into groups, men and women, and we discuss. If you are serious about your sobriety and true recovery, I want to encourage you to start your step work. By going through these steps myself, it has provided me a supportive and safe place to share, but to also learn. Actively working the steps is a powerful recovery tool in itself. According to the American Society of Addiction Medicine, 12-step recovery programs offer a proven approach that addresses a person's psychology, spirituality, and personal values. These programs encourage connectedness to others, like here right now, just look around, a willingness to engaging with others, and the courage to humbly ask for help. So if you're here tonight, I want to encourage you to ask for help if you're struggling. Have you ever tried to quit your addiction on your own? How did that work out? When Brad and I shared our testimony a few weeks ago, I shared about the beginning of my addiction to alcohol. I know my addiction could have been a lot worse, and if I didn't seek help, I know I would be at a different place today. When we're only accountable to ourselves, we can make up any excuse in the world for our failures. Sometimes, even in the moment, we don't even know why we made that choice. When I made the decision to stop, I remember I reached out to Kim, Dave's wife, asking her to be my accountability partner. She suggested I attend CR, Community Recovery. This was in September of 2020. I remember feeling like I didn't belong. I was definitely not like the other alcoholics in the room. With my family history, I knew I was in danger of addictive behaviors. I was wanting to stop drinking, but I couldn't. I wasn't successful. This was a red flag to me that I had a problem. I remember coming home and being very proud of myself for taking the step of getting a blue chip and putting myself out there. So congratulations, Aaliyah, for getting your blue chip tonight. A neighbor was at our house and asked where I'd been. I told him that I just came from CR and showed him my blue chip. He told me that I wasn't an alcoholic as he continued to drink his beer. You see, I care about what people think of me. It's kind of a flaw of mine. My gut was telling me I had a problem, but then I had my circle of influence tell me I didn't. Unfortunately, I allowed the wrong support system into my life, and it would take a couple of years for me to return to this group. True friends and a true support system like the people here are going to be looking out for you. They're even going to share similar stories regarding their multiple relapses. Your friends won't allow you to make up excuses. You relapse. Okay, let's start again. Your friends won't judge you for backsliding. They'll understand your struggle and pick you up off the ground, or may even buy back that 12-pack of Bud to keep you from drinking. Long-lasting recovery is possible, and that's what I want to get across tonight. There are many people here today with over a year of sobriety. They didn't do that earlier. How many people here have over a year of sobriety? So look around. It is possible. Some even have like 15 years. In the moment while you are in the cycle, this can seem unreachable. But when you do it in the presence of a few like-minded people here, your odds become significantly higher. The 12 steps are practical. I'm a math person. That's why I like them. They make sense. They force us to look in the mirror. Most people would rather blame everything and everyone else rather than be honest that it all starts with you. Don't misunderstand me here. Our experiences impact us and play a role in who we are. It's easy for me to blame my husband and my neighbor for my reason to continue to drink. It definitely didn't help. But understanding my part and how alcohol had control over me instead of me having control over it was a huge realization in the process of my recovery. So let's break down the first step. The first word is we. This tells us that it is a community effort. We can't do this alone. Our group is called Community Recovery. Having multiple people who you can reach out to in your weak moments will increase your chances of staying sober. I personally meet with 2 ladies, they're here tonight, to work through my steps. This isn't the norm, but it works for me. I also lead the women's group me chat, and I know I can send a quick message and have multiple ladies praying for me in my desperate moments. So I want to encourage you, if you're here tonight for the first time and you're a lady, get on that group me chat. Accountability is a huge thing in recovery. Please realize you can't do it alone and that you need an accountability partner or multiple. Dave just got done preaching on that as well. I challenge you to get 1 new number tonight to add to your support team. So that's separate from the group me. Okay, actually get their number, get it, and put it in your phone. The group me's are great, but I find it difficult to locate the number when I need to actually talk to someone specific. I talk to at least one of my ladies every single day. We check in with each other, and trust me, I've been there. When you've already made that decision to drink or whatever it is, at this point, it is too late. You are not willing to make that call because you know what they are going to say. Again, they're not going to let you make those excuses. They're going to tell you to stop drinking, and you're going to tell them, I'm going to continue to drink. I want to emphasize that daily communication and connection is huge. Okay? The devil is quick, and he will use the smallest window to attack. I don't become depressed overnight. That's something else that I struggle with is depression. I shared about that during my testimony. Sometimes it just sneaks up on me. I've gotten much better at identifying my habits when depression is on the horizon. I don't like to sit in it. I seek out help immediately. If I can't find free help, this is free by the way, I will pay for it. We are willing to throw away thousands of dollars on our addictions that are literally destroying us. But when it comes to doing things that will actually help us and are good, we somehow don't have the money to pay for it. Think about what your thing, whatever it is that you're struggling with, is actually costing you. The next word of the first step is admitted. This requires us to look ourselves in the mirror, like I said earlier, and we must become honest with ourselves. The foundation of step 1 is based on honesty. We must become honest with ourselves first before we can move forward. We can finally realize that we have been living in a different reality. We realize we've had enough. We can look at ourselves and say, now what? We can apply this program to literally every aspect of our lives, okay? That's what mentioned earlier in our opening. It doesn't have to be for alcohol or drugs. It can be anything at all. It can be a severe addiction issue, or it could be something more vague and difficult to identify, like, I don't want to be in toxic relationships anymore, or I keep getting angry over the small stuff. Whatever it is that you're working on, the candid and honest admission that you have a problem is the entry into recovery. We all know that feeling. Oh, this doesn't feel right, and I definitely don't want to proceed any further down this path. That tells you that's probably something you need to work on. Sometimes it takes a rock bottom or multiple rock bottoms to get to this point. So tonight, are you unhappy or lost about something? There's this blue chip here. You can get it at any time. When embarking on the journey of change and we see the success, you'll find that with any situation you might find yourself in, the 12 steps are applicable, and that's why I like it. Not only are ogres like onions, we are too. Once we pull back one addiction, the other problems in your life that need to be changed will become revealed. And sometimes they may not be external, they may be internal. So let's move on to powerless. The concept of powerlessness can be hard to grasp. Powerlessness is often mistaken for weakness or moral failing, but this is actually a step of strength. When we admit that we are powerless over any addiction we struggle with, we admit that we are living with a disease that alters the chemical makeup of the brain. Have you ever tried to put a rule into whatever addiction you are trying to stop? Brad and I would do this often. We would say we would only drink on the weekends or at restaurants, etc. This did not work. You see, even though, I need you to hear this, even though my alcohol consumption was far less than a typical alcoholic, my ability to quit on my own or follow our rules shows you how even just a little amount affected my brain. When you do something that you're addicted to, the brain releases dopamine. This is also known as the feel-good neurotransmitter. Dopamine is a chemical in the brain that makes us feel enjoyment. We all like to feel enjoyment. When you take drugs or become addicted or to anything, you become dependent on that substance or activity. This leads you to not being able to feel happy without taking the drug or whatever it is. The happiness you feel while using is very temporary, which is why it becomes so hard to stop, and we lose control. We become powerless in our addiction. The ironic thing in this step is that there's so much power in this step once we finally admit that we are powerless. What are you powerless over? It can be any of our addictions, and it doesn't discriminate. For example, I feel powerless over my cell phone use. I'm constantly looking at the phone, even when I don't want to look at my phone. Honestly, I don't even know what I'm looking at. It's just a habit. I'll just pick it up and stare at it. I don't know. It's just a habit. It doesn't make me feel good about myself. Some other things could include, I want to change my relationship with food. I want to change how I interact with my spouse. I want to stop having road rage. Can we talk about road rage for a minute?
Oh.
I realize that I'm in a room full of people with this struggle. The Lord has blessed me beyond measure to not allow other people's driving to steal my energy. Well, a couple of days ago, as I was on my way home on I-64, I was coming home from Louisville. I was approaching the area where the Watterson and I-64 start merging together right near Hurstbourne Lane. If you're familiar with that area, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I stay in the far left lane in this area because I really don't like switching lanes, especially when other people are trying to merge into my lane. It just gets scary for me, so I'm heading to Shelbyville, so I'm just going straight down the left lane, minding my business. You're doing the speed limit. So it's unsafe. I just want to be clear that it's unsafe for me to be just going and switching lanes. I understand. Some of you may disagree with me here. There was a car in front of me that was going slow. It was going around the speed limit, okay? Because it wasn't enough for me to notice. Like, I wasn't like, oh, this person is like so slow. I didn't even notice. But the person behind me, he was angry. And he started honking his horn. Well, this prompted the person in front of me to start speeding up. So I sped up a little bit. I think the person behind me was obviously expecting me to change lanes to let them pass. Nope. At this point, I'm definitely driving a little faster than the speed limit, and I don't like that. And they were basically on top of my bumper. I'm telling you, if I would have just made a decision to press my brake at any moment, they would have crashed right into me, for a fact. That's how close they were. I can tell they're getting more angry, and I'm just continuing to listen to a podcast. I see that, then they start flashing their lights at me. They're flashing their lights. I mean, it's bright outside. I can see them flashing. I do not care. I'm smiling. I'm happy. I'm on my way to life group. I'm getting excited for enchiladas. I think they finally realized that I wasn't moving, and so they eventually passed me and got in front of me. Meanwhile, looking like they were doing the disco in their front seat, trying to motion me over. Do you think that worked? Do you think that got me to change lanes? Nope. Listen, they couldn't control how I chose to drive or react. I think they were trying to make me mad, but it didn't make me mad. I actually thought it was pretty funny, which is why I'm sharing it here. And I couldn't control how they decided to drive or react. No control whatsoever. So, after this, I do have a handout because I'm a teacher. I have 2 questions on the handout. Number 1, what areas of your life, so you can kind of start thinking about it, what areas of your life do you have power or control over? And number 2, what areas of your life are out of control or you feel like you don't have control over? Step 1 is about not getting back into the cycle of your addiction. I'm speaking mostly on my experience with alcohol. According to the Mayo Clinic, alcohol use disorder is defined as a chronic disease characterized by uncontrolled drinking and obsession with alcohol. Alcoholism is the inability to control drinking due to both a physical and emotional dependence on alcohol. Symptoms include a strong need or urge to use alcohol. The National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism states, as individuals continue to drink alcohol over time, progressive changes may occur in the structure and function of their brains. These changes can compromise brain function and drive their transition from controlled, because some of you guys can drink and control it, okay? So it drives the transition from controlled occasional use to chronic misuse, which can be difficult to then control. The changes can endure long after a person stops consuming alcohol and can contribute to relapse in drinking. I want to focus on the word chronic here for a minute. Chronic is something that is long-lasting and difficult to eradicate. A little over a month ago, it was discovered that I had a chronic heart condition. It was a heart condition I was born with, and I had no idea. Ever since I was in high school, I would have times when my heart would start beating super fast. Typically, when we have something that seems medically wrong, we see a doctor, right? If you don't, you should. Well, that's what I did. However, all tests would always come back normal. I convinced myself, even though it would continue to happen, that all was normal. I didn't have a heart problem. I don't blame the tests or the doctors. They only had so much information to diagnose me. See, with my drinking, I was the only person who really knew how much I depended on it. It wasn't visible to everyone around me. I convinced myself often that my drinking was normal. So back to my heart. Last year, I had one of my episodes at work that caused my heart to beat fast. It all started from a single hiccup, just one hiccup. I reached out to my doctor who ordered an echo on my heart. All was normal again. At this point, she suggested I get a watch. This is not an ad, by the way. She suggested that I get a watch that had the ability to do an EKG real time when I was having an episode so that I would have data, math person, love my data. I would have data to take to a cardiologist. My problem would then become visible. Here is the thing. I could have ignored her advice. Do you always take the advice that people give you? Especially those that have been sober for years. They kind of know what they're talking about. See, I listened to my doctor. By the end of February, I had my first episode since I purchased the watch. It recorded my heart rate at 227 beats per minute. I was able to capture my heart rhythm with the EKG. I sent it over to my doctor and she wanted me to see a cardiologist. I should have seen the cardiologist immediately, but I told her I wanted to wait because I wanted more data. Again, math. Here I am trying to control things, like always. I was having such a hard time because I've gone years of my life with being told everything was normal. I didn't want the cardiologist saying that my watch just happened to capture something and it was a fluke, like it was wrong. Well, 2 weeks after that episode, I had another one, and it showed the same thing. From that point, everything went super fast. After I saw the first cardiologist, I realized how severe my issue actually was. I asked him if I was going to die because, honestly, his face didn't look good. He said, well, no, but we can't wait around on this, and I need you to see someone different who can fix it. He couldn't fix it. He was a plumber, he said, not an electrician. It was surreal. All this time, thinking all was normal, but come to find out, my heart was a ticking time bomb, literally. The second cardiologist ended up doing a procedure to try to find out what was going on. It was discovered during that procedure that I had 2 issues that were causing my heart to beat fast. The cardiologist, you don't want to, I was awake during this, and I could feel him moving around, and he's like, well, that's interesting. Wow. And he kept like running back and forth to these other people. It was a little unsettling. You don't want to ever experience something like that. So he wasn't able to fix the issue during that procedure because he was not expecting it. And it was going to end up being a way more extensive procedure than he was expecting. The fact that I had 2 issues going on was extremely rare, and that I've lived this long to tell you about it. He scheduled a follow-up procedure about 2 days later to fix the issues. Well, he found 2 more things wrong with my heart, okay? That was causing the irregular heart rhythms. So now I have to be on blood thinner medications for a few months. Now, the 4 things, extremely rare. He's never seen anything like it. In fact, I'm probably going to be a case study for him, okay? One of the most amazing cases he said he's ever had. He ended up having to do basically 3 procedures in one to fix all 4 things wrong with my heart. On the surface, and this is where I'm getting at, everything appeared fine. I'm very fortunate that God protected me from sudden cardiac arrest and a stroke, because I could have easily been one of those people that just randomly dropped one day. The cardiologist claims that he believes 1 issue is what actually caused the other 3. Similarly, addiction rarely acts alone. I don't think it is wise, and I think a lot of other people would agree in here with me, I don't think it's wise to replace one addiction with another unhealthy addiction. It can lead to bad things. Also, if our addictions are considered a disease, why are we so hesitant to seek out help like we would with any other medical issue? Step 1 is about accepting what is and what is not. It is a gateway to freedom and a declaration of progress. As we go through the process of step 1, we are moving from a lack of awareness into an awareness of the reality of this disease and the possibility of change. We are beginning to believe that we are capable of living in a different way. I know with myself, I struggled in the beginning to believe this. My perspective had to change. No longer was I saying, I don't have a problem. I just introduced myself as an alcoholic. That's huge for me. Or listening to those around me saying, I don't have a problem. There's no more telling myself it's under control or my drinking is normal. Now I must acknowledge that I'm powerless and that my life has become unmanageable. Looking at that our lives have become unmanageable part of step 1, not only can our lives become unmanageable, but also our minds can become unmanageable. I couldn't control my thoughts or actions when I was under the influence. In fact, there are times I feel like I can't control these things even when I'm sober. I fail daily when it comes to doing the things I want to do because good habits are hard when we have daily bad habits that just seem to make our lives easier. So the word become in that sentence reveals our lives had slowly and painfully become unmanageable. That is the progression of this disease and many others. Alcohol kills in the millimeters. All right, math person, you understand? That's pretty small, right? Other drugs will kill much faster. Whether it kills us slowly or at a faster rate, it is still killing us and causing our lives to become unmanageable. So, unmanageable. Our lives become chaotic, but we somehow try to control everything. I don't know about you, but I can't control chaos. It never works out. The consequences of your addiction is causing your life to become unmanageable. Once it starts, you don't know when it's going to end. You aren't sure when you're going to be able to resume control. With our first step, you want to adopt and own the phrase, I can't, but. Knowing that in step 2, which is going to be talked about next week, what follows is, God can. When we admit we are powerless, we start walking in truth, and that empty feeling deep inside will go away. It takes away the lie that if only I was more disciplined, or had stronger willpower, or better self-control, I could stop living in my addiction. When we are living in our addiction, we are living in sin. Sin separates us from God. The more we sin, the more separation there is with God. Admitting to being powerless is the first step to bridging the gap between you and God. Romans 7:18, like we read earlier, for I know that nothing good dwells in me, that is, in my flesh, for I have the desire to do what is right, but not the ability to carry it out. We must never underestimate the power of sin and the attempt to fight it in our own strength. Satan is crafty, like I said earlier, and we have an amazing ability to make excuses. We shouldn't try to overcome sin with our own human willpower. Not good. In admission of our powerlessness, we have begun the journey of recovery that will allow us to accept the true and only higher powers, Jesus Christ's healing, love, and forgiveness. You are ready to take your first step in recovery when the pain of staying the same, hear me, you are ready to take your first step in recovery when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of changing. You are unable to do for yourself what you need God to do for you. You either are going to serve God or yourself. You can't serve both. Now, before we end for tonight, I don't want to forget about the people here today who are supporting someone in recovery or has been affected by someone's addiction. So I found some tips for you to support someone in recovery from addiction, because this is something I would have appreciated. I grew up with an alcoholic dad, and reading these make a lot of sense. And I really wish I would have done some of these. Number one, check in on them and actively listen. We all need and want to be heard and listened to. Be sure to be interested and engaged when whoever it is sharing something with you. Demonstrate concern and paraphrase to ensure that you are understanding them and show that you're listening to them. Even if you may not agree with them, affirm their feelings. So what that looks like is if they're having a conversation with you, you're not like, yeah, okay. You're actually phones down, staring at them, or talking to them on the phone if you can. Number two, reduce friction and unnecessary arguments. Family stress can contribute to a drug or alcohol relapse, and it can exacerbate underlying mental health issues such as depression or anxiety. Do your part to develop healthy communication and open dialogue to help facilitate constructive support. Try to spend meaningful and positive time together and try to stay away from unneeded or unwanted topics of discussion. Encourage healthy habits. You might be struggling with healthy habits yourself, okay? But this is an opportunity for you to do those things together. So whether it be open communication, proper sleep hygiene, exercise, eating healthy, or abstaining from alcohol, drugs, and nicotine, show your support by living a healthy lifestyle yourself. This has many benefits beyond supporting your loved one, as this will help improve your own mental, physical, and spiritual health, and can also be a source of bonding and healing between you and the person you're trying to support in recovery. Number four, don't judge. Individuals in recovery from drugs and alcohol often have dealt with a great deal of guilt already and shame in their past, and may still be holding on to negative feelings about themselves. So the last thing they need is to feel that guilt from you. They do not need to be made to feel worse because you're judging them. Instead of judging them, accept them, love them, and appreciate them for who they are. They have likely come a very long way. Number five, encourage and support them. Show your loved one encouragement and support by demonstrating how proud you are of their recovery. Like, getting the blue chip is a huge first step. Like that, you can't get the 30 days until you take the step to get the blue one. And then reaching that 30-day mark is also a huge accomplishment. And guess what? If you got to go back and get the blue chip, that's okay. You're in a safe spot here. There's no judgment here. At least for me. I can't speak for everybody else. Number 5. I already said that. A few simple words of encouragement and support can go a long way. Encourage them to attend things like this, go to meetings, other places, and they may even need to go to rehab to get better, and that's okay. Number 6, practice patience. Know that nobody changes overnight. While an individual may be in recovery, they still might engage in unhealthy behaviors or make poor decisions. This is why I want you to be kind of conscious if you're trying to give up something, to be aware of what you're replacing it with. Because now you don't want to end up in a spot where you now have to stop doing something else that you don't want to be doing. I'm going to call out my husband for a second. When he quit drinking, he craved sugar so bad, and he would make desserts every single night. I mean, I'm like, you have got to stop doing this. I'm going to end up developing like blood sugar issues, okay? And so I told him, I was like, do you really, because he's like, I'm not losing weight. I thought if I quit drinking, I would lose weight. And I'm like, well, do you realize how much dessert we're eating every single night? And how much cereal and ice cream and cookies? He's a great cook, let me tell you. And he's gotten a lot better. His cravings obviously have gotten a lot better. So, Brad, thank you for the subsiding of the desserts. It's my body appreciates it a lot, because I have a hard time when it's in front of me. I have a hard time saying no, and that's the truth. So recovery is much more than abstinence from drugs and alcohol, and healing and growth will take time. That's what I also want you to hear, that it is going to take time. I know that we get frustrated with ourselves because we thought we'd be a lot further along, and trust me, I was really frustrated because, again, I didn't drink a lot. And I was shocked that I was having such a hard time stopping. It just didn't make sense to me in my brain. And so relapses and other setbacks do happen. So show of hands, if you're willing to admit it, how many of you guys have had relapses and during your recovery process? Yeah. Okay. So if they do, you need to continue to show love, concern, and support, and always practice patience with yourself and the person that you're wanting to support. Number 7 is educate yourself on addiction and recovery. Great job. You're doing that right now. You're here. Okay? So the fact that you're here to support that person speaks volumes. Never be fooled into thinking one is cured of their addiction. And that's the thing that I have to really remind myself, because I feel like I'm in a good spot right now. But I'm going to tell you what, when you're in a good spot, that's when really the devil wants to attack you more. And so I really have to be careful. And so when all this stuff was happening with my heart, my grandmother also passed away. And so it was just, really kind of dark, little weird time for me. And so it was a close one. But I continue to come here and stay connected. So, it's a lifelong process. Learn the signs of relapse, including red flags to look out for that one might be headed towards a relapse, as well as signs and symptoms that they are under the influence of whatever they're addicted to. One of the major signs that I've seen is lying, not being honest, and definitely the isolation part. If someone's missing from this group, especially if you're a lady, I notice. I see that. And I don't mean to sound creepy. I'm not stalking you by any means, but I care about you and I care about your sobriety. So if you're not here, I pay attention, and I'm thinking it's because you may have relapsed and that's why you're not here. So you just tell me like, hey, in the group me, I'm not going to be there tonight. I got this obligation. Okay. That frees my mind from worrying and thinking that you're out doing something that you shouldn't be doing that could really be harmful. You want to also, number 8, set healthy boundaries. Very hard for me to set healthy boundaries. Oftentimes, poor boundaries are formed during active addiction and may continue into recovery. It is important that all individuals take inventory of any enabling. So think about it. If you're working with somebody that's in recovery, are you enabling their behavior, codependent, or other such unhealthy behaviors? Setting healthy boundaries, I assure you, is beneficial for everyone, Okay, you're not helping that person who you think you're helping that's really struggling with their addiction by enabling them to continue to do whatever they're struggling with. Number 9, reduce environment triggers. This is why I had such a hard time stopping to drink. If it's in front of me, I'm going to want to do it. So Brad was continuing to drink while I was trying to stop drinking. Not going to work. Okay? And so if that's you and you're in a house with somebody that is trying to stop something, but you're continuing to do that, and you want them to get sober and you want them to be recovered, and you need to be aware yourself what you're doing to tempt that person. So avoid keeping alcohol or drugs in the home and abstain from using alcohol and drugs yourself. It's not going to hurt you if you stop. If you do drink alcohol, so I'm not telling everybody don't throw things at me that you don't have to drink alcohol, that you guys stop drinking, especially those that have it under control, but make sure that you do not do it in the presence of your loved ones in recovery, okay? Because there was a time when Brad finally decided that he was going to quit. I'd been back to drinking again, and so I thought I was doing Brad a favor by, when I got drunk, when I was off work, they had a thing at work. No, I was not drunk at work, okay? Anyway, I thought I was good by doing that and being respectful, but I was absolutely not. And then that's when I made the decision, like, okay, I want you to be sober. I'm not going to do this. I can't do this because I want it for both of us and our child. If you do have prescription medications, keep them locked up and out of the sight of your loved ones, especially if that's something they struggle with. Help them avoid social situations where there is a risk of relapse or support. We talked about in our testimony, that was huge. We had to change the people we were hanging around. My neighbor who was continuing to drink, I remember specifically, when I got 100 days sober for my first time, I was celebrating. I put it on Facebook. It was a huge testimony. I was so excited about it. We would go over to their house all the time and never, see, my weakness is wine. And so never saw this family ever drink drink wine. It was always beer. I'm not tempted by beer. I really hate beer. But on this particular day, I'd made the post. I was excited about my 100 days of sobriety. We go over to our neighbor's house, and guess what he offers me? Glass of wine. Pulls it out of the refrigerator. Couldn't hang out with those people anymore. So, help them avoid social situations where there's a risk of relapse or support them by going with them to help keep them accountable. And again, by you being here, that's a huge thing. So I don't know where all of you are right now. You might be, everyone in here is probably struggling with something and something that you want to give up. But you might just be here literally to support somebody who's here. And I love you for that. Thank you. Most importantly, number 10 is learn to let go. You can't make somebody stop. Engage in self-care and find your own support. By being here alone, this is a good support group to be in. This is a huge thing, and we've all heard you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. This is absolutely true. You can give someone an opportunity, but you cannot force them to take it because it will not stick if they're not really willing to change on their own. Not on their own, but with the help. And listen, I know life is hard, but God is good. And thank you so much for being here, whether you're here because you are currently struggling with an addiction or you're here to provide support. I know I appreciate you. All the leaders appreciate you. Dave appreciates you. And then Lori has a handout for everybody. So take a look at that. The 10 tips on how to support people and addictions on there. Some info, scientific stuff's on there about the brain and addiction. And then I have those 2 questions that I mentioned about earlier. So, you guys.
Good job, Jessica.
Thank you.
So, guys, I was going to kind of reiterate some of that, but she's got it on the handout, so I won't. So we'll wait until we go into small groups to do some of that. But there's some great things there that she talked about. And the last thing that she kind of wrapped up with in a summary of that is people, places, and things. You've got to watch your people, places, and things when you're in recovery, or when you're trying to support people in recovery. Okay, that's our thing that we always talk about here is people, places, and things. You can't hang around the same people, do the same stuff, and go to the same places and expect a change in your life.